Welcome to 3 Yards Per Carry, a podcast covering the Miami Dolphins and the NFL. Now, here's your hosts, Chris, Alf, and Simon.
And we're on, and welcome to another edition of 3 Yards Per Carry. I'm Alfredo Arteaga. I have Simon Clancy here, and I have Chris Kaufman here. For those of you that were very concerned last week, sending me very cryptic emails, is everything okay? Did you guys have a falling out? No, we did not. You know, we have schedules, and Chris likes to gallivant about the country this time of year. He did the same thing last year. And Simon likes to go to Russia every once in a while, or Japan, or you know, go to a football
That's very true.
in Eastern Europe. But
I had a falling out with myself.
Oh, really?
With myself, that's it.
Okay. But we're all here. Well, that was an interesting game yesterday, guys. I found myself extremely angry, and then just like that Alonzo Mourning meme that's been made very popular on Twitter, where he's shaking his head in disbelief, and then all of a sudden he recognizes, you know, this is not such a bad thing. That loss essentially put picking 10th, 11th, or 12th completely out to bed while it was in play as they were winning the game. Of course, I didn't like how the game ended, but who cares? That improves their draft position. Brian Flores blew a gasket. Your thoughts on how it ended, Simon? I know you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I thought it was. I did think it was pass interference. I thought Needham actually played all right in the game, and feels a little bit like a bit of a keeper for next season. Mm-hmm. But I do think he had his arm around the receiver's neck a little bit too early. It's a bang play, but he is there too soon. I think if we were on the other end of it, I think we'd have been disappointed if that hadn't been called, and it was us on offense. I thought they played pretty well. I think the red zone struggles were obvious. I thought Fitzpatrick missed a few throws, specifically to Gesicki. Obviously, it's more difficult when you lose Albert Wilson and you lose Devontae. But, you know, you saw guys like Isaiah Ford step up. You know, Matt Collins was pushing, was threatening deep. I thought Patrick Laird had a really good game and already looks like a sort of one of those New England backs that they've had for the last 20 years, really. Underachieving little white fellas who can run the ball, can, you know, catch the ball out of the backfield, make plays on special teams, have names like the intern, will just do it all, really. So good for him. I thought the offensive line was hot trash.
They're so scrappy.
He's a little scrappy little fella.
Gym rats.
Exactly. Yeah. And look, the kicker had a tremendous game. It was unfortunate for him that Matt Hawk dropped the field goal, the snap that would have, you know, potentially would have made his 8th kick of the game. You never know how these games work out. If that kick had gone through, who knows what would happen. But, you know, I thought they played hard. And look, I'm in an interesting situation now because the Tua injuries kind of clouded everything. Wins seem a little more joyous, perhaps, than they did, you know, 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, because there's so much up in the air, and you know it's clear that Tua isn't going to go 1. Looks like the Giants will pick 2 at the moment, and they've got their quarterback. It feels like Chase Young is going to be their pick, and the teams that we kind of worried a little bit about, Washington, feel like Dwayne Haskins has been 2-2 the last couple of weeks, almost pulled off a win in Lambeau yesterday without playing brilliantly, but it feels like, you know, they're kind of, you know, he needs some skill, especially, you know, to complement McLaurin. So it really depends on, you know, where Miami end up and how that hip is. But I don't feel as bad about cheering for wins as I did early on in the season. But I thought they played well. And look, I said it on Twitter last night. I think it's an extraordinary coaching job that's being done by Flores and his team. They've been pretty close in a few games. And, you know, I was adamant that this lot were going to be 0-16, maybe 1-15. And I've taken the L on this. And I think mainly because, you know, the coaching job has been so good given the XFL roster that he's working with.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought that 3-13, 5-11 was in play before they traded everybody. When they traded everybody, I said, yeah, 0-16 is absolutely right there in the cards. And I've been shocked by the way that they've played. They've been competitive basically since week 6. They've been a legitimate football team since week 6. Chris, your thoughts?
Well, first off, I did think that was interference, and like Simon said, if we were on the other side of it, we'd be loud in our protests about about that.
Yeah, but let me ask you this, Chris, quickly, and then you could get on with your point. Don't you think it's weird that they review this in slow motion? Like, life doesn't happen in slow motion. Like, interference is interference in real life, not in slow motion when you could, look for every single nuance.
That's
you,
a Homer's.
That you either make it reviewable or you don't. I mean, they've
Yeah.
made pass interference reviewable, so you review it, and they have a set of standards that they. I mean, listen, they don't turn these over, these pass interference calls. Somehow Miami has managed to get 2 of them turned over, which baffles me because the rest of the league can't get any of them turned over. Yeah, I think if it's the reason he didn't catch the ball and you interfered with him and grabbed him around the neck, turned his shoulder a little bit, then yeah, it's pass interference. So first off, there's that. I do think that wasn't as bad as some people perceived it. But the other thing is the season and the fact that they've won 3 games and maybe we'll win some more. We'll see. They've lost Devontae Parker now. I think it's a lesson in not overreacting to things because, prior to the very end of the preseason, sort of when all the shenanigans really began, we were talking about how good coaches don't lose, 14, 15, or 16 games, right? And if Miami is hiring the people that they really think, truly believe are going to lead them to the Super Bowl, then that is at complete odds with the sort of underpaying the roster tanking thing. And because they sort of balance with each other a little bit. Yeah, you've got a really vastly underpaid roster. But at the same time, if you've hired all these coaches that have these Super Bowl rings and championship rings, which they do, then you're probably going to win some games. So, but then that got thrown for. So we were kind of like consistent about that, and then it got really thrown for a loop because right on the eve of the season, they trade Laramie Tunsil. They turned over, or they also traded Kiko Alonso and cut several of the veterans that got rid of several of the veterans we thought they might get rid of, but we didn't really know. And then the Minka Fitzpatrick thing starts taking hold. They churned over more than a quarter of the roster right before the season started, and then started playing all those guys, which is like immediately, which is kind of ridiculous. You never see that happen. And so we're like, wow, the tank really is in. They've done it. They've succeeded. They've gone further than anybody else has gone before. They're going to go 0-16. They're the worst team, one of the worst teams in league history. That's how they started the year. But that was an overreaction. It was an overreaction to those last couple of moves. And the reality is we're back to good coaches don't lose 14, 15, 16 games. And
tell that to Cam Cameron.
Yeah, well, that's the reality, right? I mean, we're saying they won 3 games because they've done a really good job coaching, and you see, actually, it's really marvelous to try and watch these games and see how the success of these plays that are helping us to win these games or helping to keep us competitive. The success of these plays really only keys on a couple of players succeeding. Like it doesn't have to be all 11 the way the Dolphins are playing right now on offense and on defense. Fortunate as it is, because we don't have good 11 players on any given play. So it's funky to watch, but yeah, they're doing a good job coaching and they're competing and stuff like that. But clearly this was not a good team though that played on Sunday. Dolphins, and clearly this was not a good team that they faced, the Jets.
Yeah, the Jets
and this was
terrible.
This was a battle of bumblers, and that's what I saw, and we'll see how it goes forward, because now that they've lost Devontae Parker, that could be a semi big deal, because he had just kind of come into his own, and we'll see if that affects whether they can actually pull off wins against even the bad teams that they're facing, like the Giants.
And now it's 2 wide receivers. It's Devontae Parker and Albert Wilson, both in the concussion protocol.
Yeah,
there's only 3 weeks left, so
and they're going to shut them. They're going to shut them down, right?
You got to figure they're not going to play anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if 2 more wins, and that's what we handicapped. If they're, if that's possible.
Well, I thought 3, 2.5 to 3. I was.
And it's increasingly clear that the Patriots are going to absolutely need that last game because they're dropping like a rock. They're gonna need that game to even keep pace for the 3 seed. So, and speaking of the Patriots, pretty interesting story, Chris. You have the details of it because it's even better the more you read on it.
I don't have too many of the details. I just know that the Patriots are caught videotaping again, which is the greatest thing ever. But from what I know, just to recap very briefly, the Bengals scouts were in the press box for the Bengals-Browns games. They were in the Browns stadium. Evidently, a Patriots videographer just comes in to the press box with his camera and just sets up his tripod right next to the Bengals scouts and just starts filming the field. And the Bengals are like, the hell, we play the Patriots next week. He's got these big Patriots emblems all over the place. It's like living inside of a Twitter meme. I mean, what is going on here? And so they reported it, and the staffers came down and they confiscated his SD card. And the Patriots claim that they got permission from the Browns to do this, and that it was a team-sponsored puff piece called "Do Your Job," and it's supposed to be following one of their pro scouts, their advanced scouts, and just filming him and filming, his job, what he's doing. But it's they were filming the field clearly, which is why the Bengals scouts were upset or, reported it in the first place. So this is going to be fun to look at because they did not get permission from the league to do that. And they definitely did not get permission from the Bengals to do it. So
I can tell you this at Hard Rock Stadium, at the farthest end press box, which is right on the end zone, there's a sign that says you may not film or photograph the field during play. Okay. And that press box is loaded with advanced scouts. There's guys there from the Chiefs, from the Jaguars, from everywhere, from the Patriots. So it's commonplace to have them in and around the game on game day, and you can pick up a lot by watching the entire field. But at practice, and the guy's wearing his emblem, and then he decides to start filming practice, that's hilarious. Especially
it was during the game, but
it was the game. It wasn't practice.
Oh, it wasn't practice. It was
the game.
Yeah, it was the game on Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And there's so much tape of the game itself. You why do you, even if you're filming for this puff piece, why do you can get the tape of the game if you need to splice that in to your puff piece about the pro scout, right?
But also wasn't he filming, didn't he set up his camera on the sideline as well and start filming the Bengals coaches and their signals?
Well, that's what the Bengals were worried about, but I didn't hear about him actually being on the sidelines. I heard that he had set up his tripod in the press box and was filming the field, which would include the Bengals sidelines and scouts and stuff or coaches. Sorry. So, I mean, that's seriously why would you do that if you're the team that got caught?
That team's got significantly bigger problems than filming Bengals. I mean, and frankly, who needs to film the Bengals offense?
I know exactly.
Although I will tell you this: the way the Bengals offense is playing, they better start filming them because that Patriot defense has to basically pitch shutouts to win games now. They have to basically hand the ball over to their offense at the 20-yard line over and over again, just so they can score points to keep pace.
And the offense is bad, isn't it?
Oh, it's awful. Tom Brady. Well, I'm going to say the obvious. Tom Brady is bad, and he's just bad this year.
I don't know if that's true. I don't think I think those receivers generally without Julian Edelman or excepting Julian Edelman, he's having a real problem with
but missing people by 5-6 yards is not a receiver problem.
No run game, Sony Michel being injured, and I think
there's a
the most
fascinating.
Yeah, the most fascinating thing has got to be what happens at the end of the season. Because he's a free agent, and it looks pretty obvious that the Patriots aren't going to sign him to a new contract. Don Yee, his agents, talked about the fact that he wants to be paid commensurate with the best quarterbacks in the NFL, given what he's done. And the Patriots, with the greatest respect to the world, I think Bill Belichick's going to say, that's just not happening. And it feels like there's a part of the way is coming very, very soon. And, where does he go if he goes anywhere? I mean, he's not going to want to go to a rebuilding team. He's going to want to go to a team that's got a lot of talent with a chance to win. But I just don't see any openings. So it could be this could be the end. Yay.
Thank God.
Well, it'll probably be like a bit like the Dan Marino end with Miami. I mean, there's that off season was sort of like we played our team or our front office played. If the phone doesn't ring, it's me with him.
Yeah.
And he eventually was just like, what gives? Like, I thought I'd be treated with a little bit more respect than this.
Mm-hmm. And let's hope they get spunked out the playoffs 62-7 as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then Wayne Hayes-Angus steps in, right, and he says, if Dan Marino wants to be on our team, Dan Marino is on our team. And
although Dan Marino, it was reported, got pretty upset and flirted with the idea of joining the Vikings.
He did. But he decided against that and decided, just be weird to be in another team's uniform. I think he would have liked to actually play for Pittsburgh. But yeah, I think that's so. We've always I've been talking a long time about the Tom Brady leaving the Patriots this year, but I don't know if I see him on another team. Like, it's just going to be a retirement, probably, right?
It could be. I think. But what I do see is Bill Belichick going out to buy a quarterback and trying to win one without Tom Brady as his drop the mic moment. Maybe a Matthew Stafford, maybe a Derek Carr. Maybe there's a move.
Good luck winning the Super Bowl with either of those two.
But maybe Belichick has the ego to maybe try. You know what I mean?
Teddy Bridgewater or something like that.
Something like that. Like he might have it because I don't think a rookie. I don't think Bill Belichick is really into going to get a rookie and going through those pains at this age. You know what I mean?
It'll be Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. Or Ryan Tannehill.
Oh man.
You know what I mean? Something like that. I do see something like that for Bill Belichick.
Did you see that yesterday? That game yesterday makes him only the second quarterback in NFL history to have 5 straight games with passer rating over 130, 135.
Yeah. Right now, Ryan Tannehill is at 118.
Only him and Aaron Rodgers are the only 2 quarterbacks in history to have a 5-game stretch or a 4-game stretch, one of the two, with a passer rating over 135.
I like the bit of revenge that he got on Maurice Hurst. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Oh, man.
That was what a hit.
I saw it finally. That was brutal. He really laid the wood on him.
And then he smacks Maurice Hurst. Remember, Maurice Hurst is the one that got him spiraling toward his injury-plagued season last year.
The first injury, which they wouldn't acknowledge before the real injury, that the real bad one.
Yeah, but they're showing what we kind of always knew. You give him a running game and you have him in play action, he's going to do things for you.
Yeah.
And that's all they do. They run the ball and they run play action, and he's super efficient in play action. And all of a sudden, those wide receivers are all pretty damn good.
A.J. Brown looks seriously good.
Yes, he's really, really good.
He's completed like at least 77% of his passes in, it looks like, 5 of his 8 games.
Yeah, and what is he, 6? Is he 6-1 or?
Yeah, he's 6-1.
Yeah,
good for him.
He has started 7 games, and it's all
big game this weekend.
It's all right in front of him. They play Houston twice, and they have identical records with the Houston Texans. So, you want the division? Go beat Houston.
Keep going, Tannehill. Keep going, because we have the Houston pick.
Yeah, there's not that many teams that are hotter than the Titans are at the moment in terms of just winning.
Yeah, and that's a Bill Belichick spin-off right there for everybody that says that the Belichick tree is crap, and that's Mike Vrabel. Yeah. So
who would ever thought that Tannehill, when he doesn't score 30 points, is a disappointment? Because he's scored 30 points, I think, 5 straight games already.
Yeah, they're the highest scoring team in the league over the past since he came in.
Yes, he is, and the top passer rated team, and they have the most touchdowns also, and they have the second leading rusher in the NFL.
Is it bittersweet for you boys?
You know what? I'm kind of enjoying it.
Just mostly bitter.
No, I'm kind of enjoying it. I understand it was time to go. It was just time to go. We weren't going to hold on to him forever.
We got a 5th-round pick for him. He's
A
tearing up
4th
the
round
league.
pick, dude. We got a 4th round
fourth
pick.
round. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
4th round pick. Plus, we had to we had to chew up $7 million.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for a guy that's on his way. I mean, if he plays for the last 3 games the way he's played in these other games, let's be honest, he is a candidate for MVP.
Yes,
in the league, right? I mean, so a quarterback, take off the homer, the Miami Dolphins fan, pretend you're a fan of the Bills and you just relish in the Dolphins sucking and something like that. You're watching a team that just traded an MVP quarterback to another team in the AFC for a 4th round pick while having to eat $7 million. There's nothing good there. There's nothing. There's no sweet in there. I mean, I'm happy for Ryan Tannehill too. I mean, I get that, but there's no sweet there. That's just bitter. That's like watching Evan Mathis be on our roster for part of a year and then go off and then become an All-Pro for like 6 straight years.
Would it bother you? Would it bother
you
if he went to the playoffs and beat New England in New England?
No, I'd love it.
Okay, well, that's different.
I would enjoy the hell out of that. Okay,
I'd enjoy that.
I'd love it. And
we all can enjoy that.
Reports of the weekend that he's going to get a fairly significant deal from the Titans.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Good for him.
I can't help but think they're falling for it. There's something in the back of my. I can't help but think that. Like they're eating the cheese.
But Chris, you got to think about it this way, okay? They're either falling for it or they're signing a Hall of Fame quarterback. Okay.
Well, I mean, but Nick Foles did this for a year too.
Yes,
right?
he did. Yes, he did.
And now, part way into the year, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Kirk Cousins is doing it this year, by the way.
Yeah. Well, the Jags signed him for a big contract based on past success and spurts, right? These spurts that Nick Foles has had, and now they're already they're back to Minshew mania. They're like, nah, Foles, just go away.
The fascinating thing is that he looks significantly. I mean, I've seen most of the last 5 games. He looks significantly better in the pocket. He is accurate to a absolute fault at all 3 levels, short, intermediate, and deep. Most of all, everything he puts up just seems to land. He couldn't place it better into people's hands than he is doing it. He's building up a great relationship with Brown and with Davis, and he's got it's a good offensive line, and Derrick Henry. I think he's had 5 straight 100-yard games as well. So, the offense is really clicking.
We have always known that he's super accurate, though, right? I mean,
that's for sure.
Yeah, that's something that you could get down on him all you want, but you cannot criticize the consistency with the way he throws the ball, the accuracy, because he gets it there. He gets it where he wants it to go.
Absolutely.
And the arm strength.
You kind of feel a little bit like this is what was happening in the build-up to that Calais Campbell knee injury in that game.
Yes,
you kind of feel like the arc looks a bit the same. This was the guy that we felt like he was developing into when he got injured on that, when we had that great run that ended up in the playoffs. This is the quarterback that we felt didn't have the operation, had the knee injury, struggled to come back, struggled with everything last year. Sure. And now 2 years on from the injury, and he's back and he looks phenomenal. I mean, he looks fantastic.
And you also wonder, I mean, if a big part of the problem, what was the problem then? If he really was this sort of MVP class quarterback, what was the problem here? And you have to look at it and be like, Gase really was that much of a problem.
Gase,
yeah. I mean, in 2016 it was pretty good, and then sort of as Adam Gase, devolved into himself a little bit even more. It just became worse and worse.
Let's be a little bit more poetic. As he deteriorated into madness. Yeah,
I mean, and chemical induced madness maybe, but I think that it was probably Adam Gase that was a big problem for him, and now maybe we're seeing something different. But also, I mean, there's just part of me that's like, you watch. You're going to sign him to a big deal. The next year, there's going to be something going on with your team, and it's just not clicking again. And I don't know, but I'm not there yet, but I'm happy for him.
Yeah, the bottom should fall out eventually. Yeah. All right. Well, we had a championship weekend, and all these quarterbacks, they had their final auditions before the bowl games that nobody really cares about, and of course, the national championship series. What did you see, Simon, that even caught your eye? Because to be honest with you, I was just thoroughly disappointed with everybody, save Joe Burrow, who's going to win the Heisman, and he's going to be the first overall pick. So he doesn't really figure in our conversation. But
I think the most impressive thing, and I think the team that everybody's sleeping on is Clemson. I think that Trevor Lawrence has not thrown an interception since the first or second week of October in the first quarter against Louisville. He is performing at a level significantly better now than he was when he won the national championship last year. And I think that team is, they are the number 5 ranked team in defense in the nation. I think they're number 1 in overall defense. I think they're 5 against the run, 3 against the pass. And whilst they don't have the caliber of players that, the individuals, Cleveland Ferrell and Wilkins and Trayvon Mullen and Dexter Lawrence, I think they have a better team, a better unit, led obviously by Isaiah Simmons, who won the Buckers at the weekend, but with, AJ Terrell and Xavier Thomas and those guys and Kayvon Wallace and Tanner Muse. And you just look at that skill position. First of all, you look at the offensive line with Savinka at center and John Simpson, a really good left guard. They're one of the best offensive lines in the country. But, T. Higgins, phenomenal game against Virginia. Justin Ross, we all know how good he is. You go down, DeAndre Overton, Amari Rogers. They got the 2 freshmen, Frank Ladson Jr. and the other kid whose name escapes me, Travis Etienne. That team's going to be really, really hard to beat. And you look at a team like Ohio State. When have they really, really been in trouble? They were a little bit in trouble, down 14-0 against Wisconsin, but came back on the fake punt, and that kind of got them back in the game. But that was early. That was, it wasn't. They weren't in a fourth quarter battle. They've not, that Clemson team is battle tested, especially with Lawrence. Lawrence is the best pure passing quarterback in college football. I don't have any doubt of that. I thought Burrow played brilliantly for LSU. But Georgia were awful. So many drop passes, but I thought Jake Fromm didn't have a very good game. Defensively, they didn't play very well. Obviously, the injury to DeAndre Swift was huge.
I think you're being kind. I think Jake Fromm looked incompetent. He didn't look like
I think he stays in school. I would be very surprised if he comes out now.
I think he stays in school, but that's strong language to use. For the beginning of the game, he kicks off the beginning of the game with dimes dropping all over the place to the receivers that they can't catch any of them, and then from there it just all kind of snowballed. And hey, everybody's allowed to have an okay to bad game every now and then.
I think he struggled a little bit down the stretch.
He did. It got worse.
It
started out good for him, but it wasn't good on the field. It didn't translate into points.
I thought Fields played very well, and I think Oklahoma were lucky. And it's 3 teams plus Oklahoma. And actually, what was biblically bad about that team last year was that defense. Now, actually, I think they're the 22nd. I think they've jumped like 82 places in the rankings. Yeah. The defensive coordinator they got from Ohio State has done a great job. Kenneth Murray is a great player. Gallimore, the defensive tackle, is a really good player. And that actually looks like the strength of the team, because the last couple of weeks, they've really struggled to move the ball offensively. Jalen Hurts has become a turnover machine. He fumbled, interceptions. Baylor were, Baylor really shut them down completely. They're really struggling to run the ball. Trey Sermon has barely played the last few weeks. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb is still there, but I think LSU will shut Oklahoma down, and I wouldn't be surprised if Clemson beat Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl, setting up a Joe Burrow versus Trevor Lawrence battle for the national championship. But I think Clemson are a team that you should really be fearing. I think that's a very smart team with a superstar quarterback.
Do we know the first round matchups?
Yeah, it's LSU against Oklahoma and Ohio State against Clemson.
Yeah, and oddly enough, Clemson is the 3 seed.
Yeah, the question about Clemson is who have they beaten this season? They actually haven't beaten a team that ended up in the top 25, apart from Virginia, who are 24th.
Yeah, I thought the North Carolina had a good football team. They proved me wrong. They're not very good.
They had the same
And
game last
Clemson
year
is
against
struggling with them.
Syracuse. Don't you forget? Don't remember they had the game against Syracuse last year where they won right at the end of the game when Lawrence got knocked out of the game and the backup came in and scored the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. They won the game. It was the same thing in Chapel Hill against North Carolina. They had the blip, and then since then they've just been blowing teams away. I mean, 62-17 against Virginia. I mean, that was not a contest at all. And they just looked absolutely dominant. I would be if I was Ryan Day and Ohio State, I'd be very fearful of what's to come. But I mean, what a matchup that's going to be. T. Higgins and Justin Ross against Jeff Okudah and Sean Wade and Damon Arnett. And, that's going to be a hell of a game.
I do wonder about, listen, I recognize LSU is probably going to the championship and it's going to be LSU, probably Clemson, maybe. I mean, but that first matchup with Oklahoma, I go back to the Texas game that LSU had where Texas actually got a lot done on offense. And it makes me wonder, like, because the way that Oklahoma offense works is they haven't been playing well lately, but when they get on and they get on a roll, they really steamroll, right? I mean, that's the way they work. And
Lincoln Riley has this knack, which I think all the great coordinators have it also, where you could tell that they're running the same 5 plays and a couple of variations off of those same 5 plays, but you still can't stop them. You know what I mean?
But I mean, and Dave Aranda, his defense faced in Texas, and Texas was able to get things done, and that's
they've given up 35 points 4 times this season. And they gave it 620 odd yards against Ole Miss. I mean, that freshman quarterback had 220 yards rushing.
Yeah,
4 touchdowns.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the zone read that really killed. They've had their moments where they've really not been able to shut down.
I mean, Sam Ellinger threw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions against them. And he also put on 60 yards rushing with another touchdown. So, 5 touchdowns Sam Ellinger did.
And it's fascinating when you look at, Vincent and Delpit at safety. Vincent so quick, Delpit obviously a stud. And then Fulton and Stingley, who had another two fantastic picks against Georgia, just to cement his incredible season. But they're still giving up yardage in the air. And like I said, Jalen Hurts is the kind of quarterback that could hurt them if they can get that zone read going, because, they have struggled at times with, that kind of option quarterback look with the RPOs and those reads that Hurts does so well. You just hope that he doesn't take so many hits. I mean, he just takes way too many hits for a quarterback.
Yeah. Whenever I hear that, Oklahoma, it's sort of like 3 teams plus Oklahoma lucky to be here, I always think of that too, because even though I recognize that Oklahoma is kind of a weak 4th one to add into here, but they're also a team that could really sneak up on one of these teams, I think. And just, before you know it, you've lost the game because they just laid on 53 points on you or something like that. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I think it's going to be fun. And it's going to be a good test for Joe Burrow to keep that offense high octane the way they have been, LSU, and keep it up, even if Oklahoma does start to get on a roll. Like if they do get on a roll.
By the way, Joe Burrow did have one of the plays of the year in that game against Georgia. Yeah, that was insane. Where he escaped 2 sacks, then rolled out to the right, then throws it back across his body, completes it, and it's a race to the end zone. So, I agree with both of you. I think Clemson is the best team out of the 4. I think, and basically because of their experience being there before, and I would favor them right now, which is strange that they're the 3 seed. I don't get that. But I guess they go with that strength of schedule, and they haven't beaten anybody. So
yeah, I mean, you look at who LSU have beaten.
They're peaking
as well.
at the right time.
Yeah. It's hard to argue with who LSU have beaten. Texas, Alabama, Florida, Auburn, Texas A&M, Georgia. I mean, that's pretty unmatched. But Dabo hasn't lost a game since the end of the 2017 season.
No.
And Trevor Lawrence equally hasn't lost a game since the end of the 2017 season when he got knocked out by Blessed Trinity in the semi-finals of the Georgia State Championship. So these dudes do not recognize losing.
No, they don't. Well, all right, Chris. As Simon has to jet because it's getting kind of late, where he's at. On Friday night, Oregon played Utah for the Pac-12 championship, and Justin Herbert, front and center. Another high-profile game. His team gets it done. So you got to say that he got it done. But you saw some red flags, as so did I. What did you see on that game Friday night?
Well, it's the usual stuff for Justin Herbert. His success is streaky and inconsistent, and I think it's in part because he consistently fails at some aspect of the game on not every play, but most plays. And you kind of, as you stack it all up, there's so many things that a quarterback has to do completely perfectly on a play to execute it well, from a ball placement standpoint and timing and execution of the action in the backfield and pre-snap, setting protections. I mean, just basically everything. And you ask for perfection from these guys, and there's so many different ways that you can fail. And he manages to show something, even if the play is ultimately successful. He manages to show something that kind of flags you on most plays. And what that means is that the success ends up being streaky and inconsistent. So he was very successful early on in that game, and then the second half he started to not be successful. And that's what you noticed. And so overall, let's give him some credit. He finished up the year with a good record, a good passing record. He had like a 160 or nearly a 160 NCAA passer rating. He did a good job overall, I think, for the year, and he had the year that he needed to have. He finished in the top, 15 of passer ratings for the year, and he did a good job. But I still continue to have nitpicks with him, and I wonder about him as a top pick.
Yeah, and now his team moves on to the Rose Bowl, but we don't know who they'll play. They'll play, I guess, Wisconsin, because is that what's going to happen? Yeah, they're playing Wisconsin in the Rose in the Rose Bowl. So I guess that's a game that we're going to want to watch, because Wisconsin seems to play really well in all these bowl games. They have a streak going on. I think they've won 5 in a row. So I guess we want to see him play again there, but the big red flag for me was that third quarter, as Utah came thundering back with 15 consecutive points. He never really did anything to stem the tide. And at one point, he was 0 for 8 throwing the football. And there was a couple of 3 and outs in there too. And you were pointing out that Utah does have a pretty good defense. But, make a play, man. You're the superstar quarterback. Make a throw that extends a drive and stops the bleeding. Now, evidently, they didn't really need it because they scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, put the game away.
That's the other thing. I mean, if you look at what happened in the game.
Yes. So, yeah, it was a bad third quarter, but he did manage to put together 2 drives in the fourth quarter that iced the game. So you got to give him credit for that. But, yeah, I do want to see him play well against Wisconsin.
I question his accuracy. I mean, he's not an accurate quarterback. He doesn't have very good aim, in my opinion. I think he has
great ideas when he's playing. He just doesn't have the skill to execute those ideas.
Well, I mean, he completes a lot of passes, and he's got like something like 66% completion, or I forget what it is exactly, but it's not. I mean, listen, Tim Tebow had the same completion percentage when he was playing at Florida. He was not an accurate quarterback. No. Justin Herbert, and there was a stat that was pulled up by Sports Info Solutions, I believe, not too long ago, that Justin Herbert, the highest share has the highest share of completions that are due to screens, that are on screens of any of the quarterbacks out there. It's like over 30% of his completions, and that's what I keep seeing in these games. When I see he led his team back, and he showed great poise and stuff like that. I was like, he completed screens, man. And the screens went for touchdowns. There are other good throws, and trust me, this guy's got a beautiful arm. Yes, he's got a great. He's big, he's strong, he can run. I mean, he's everything that you want that way, and he's supposed to be, a very intelligent guy. I think some people kind of question whether he's a football manic kind of asset to a franchise, but I try to be easy on guys that way. Just don't be don't be a criminal. Don't be psychotic in some way. Don't be fat, and threatening to get big and out of shape.
I think that's a debate for another time because he is coming out, so I think we're gonna have to debate it because he's gonna stare us right in the face where we're gonna be picking.
Yes, he is.
Between 4th and 7th.
And we're gonna have this debate.
I think we
months.
have to debate this. Do we want the big personality like a Tua who shows up at a frat party and decides to start throwing the die, okay, and walks around town in his pajamas? All right. And you watch him in a he looks like the type of guy, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't drink. He's kind of religious, but he looks like the kind of guy that you're like, you know what? I want to go to a bar with this guy and raise some hell. Because he has the big smile. He can talk in an interview, and then you move on and you have Russell Wilson, who's kind of a nerd, but you see he's kind of gregarious, and Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, has a supermodel wife. We kind of see a pattern. Lamar Jackson is the king of the press conference now. So we're kind of seeing a pattern of these guys that are these big personalities.
I don't know. I think we see patterns when we want to see patterns. I think that really there are these guys that are all cut from different cloths. They all act different ways. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was thrown out of the process by the San Francisco 49ers because Mike Nolan thought he came off like a jerk and he's never going to be coachable. Right. I mean, but that's the way it goes. Like they're all different personalities. They're all cut from different cloths. And that's why I try to be forgiving. Like there's no one way that they're built. There are some guys that are, look at the success. We just went on and on waxing poetic about how Tannehill is doing it as an MVP in Tennessee this year. Well, what personality did he have? Did he have a big personality? Did he have
No, he was actually pretty quiet. He was a quiet
No, he's a very quiet. He's very private too. I think that they're all built different, and that's why I try to be forgiving. It's like, listen, just don't be a psycho, and don't be lazy. You cannot be lazy at that position. Just absolutely not. You can't have an eating problem. You can't, because we've seen guys that just can't keep themselves in shape. And then don't be a criminal.
Yeah.
So
and to be fair,
that's it. I'm fine.
Yeah, and to be fair, some of that is also for show because Drew Brees is known to be pretty private, and he's also boisterous. Patrick Mahomes had an absolute shit fit on the sideline on Friday, and after he blew a gasket and screamed for about 15 minutes, his offense produced 3 points the rest of the half. So
yeah, right. I mean,
what help did that do? You know what I mean?
I think they're all.
You know what I mean?
I think they're all different, and I do think that there can be positives when you see a guy that's just this natural born leader and stuff like that. I don't want to take anything away from that, but I'm not going to knock a guy out of the process because I hear some weird things about him. As long as he's not going to be sending up major red flags that way. It's really just about the field for him, and is he accurate enough, because the ball placement on him consistently comes off wrong shoulder, low, high, stuff like that, and then he misses. Like there's missing and then there's missing, right? When you miss, you don't want to be missing by like 10 yards or something like that, or throwing it way out of bounds or something. That shows that there's an aim problem. And I think that he does. If you look at the comparison between he and Jacob Eason, it's actually really interesting, because Jacob Eason, to me, even though he has a lower completion percentage, is an unqualified more accurate passer than Justin Herbert is. Absolutely 1,000% more accurate passer. That doesn't mean he's going to be a better quarterback. I don't know that. I don't know what how hard he works and the makeup and the stuff that we were just talking about. I don't know if he's if he can avoid pressure, if he's got the same athleticism, the same knack that these guys, they all have some kind of special it factor, something that's more dangerous for them than just about anybody else. And that's how they hurt defenses. We'll see if Jacob Eason has that too, and he'll go through the sandblaster if and when he comes out. But Justin Herbert, I don't know. I'm not there. But I will say this. I mean, Drew Lock is lightening up, right?
Absolutely. And I was about to bring him up. You know,
That's a vote in favor of Justin Herbert to me.
do you think it's a vote for Justin Herbert or a vote
Absolutely.
for Jacob Eason?
They were like the
quarterback
same,
that does
they were
stupid
like
things.
the same person. Last year they were the same person in college football. They
Although
were like
Drew Lock likes to talk. And if you saw his celebration yesterday he was laser blasting Houston Texans, okay, on the field.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was.
So he was doing.
Well, they have the same arm. They have the same athleticism. They have the same ability to run RPOs.
Although they do have different personalities.
They have. Well, do they? I mean, they have a little bit different personality, but there was definitely always questions about how much Drew Lock cares about it.
Yeah,
and there have been consistent questions about how much Drew Lock cares about it and whether he's got it too much. Then why do you think he was always compared to Jay Cutler?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so yeah, I think those same questions come out about Justin Herbert as well. There's no question about Herbert's intelligence level, right? I mean, he's known as kind of a brainy guy. I don't know whether is that real or is that perceived. I mean, with Josh Rosen, I always kind of felt like that braininess was more perception than reality. But
because he has maturity, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. So
because he can
I
have
think
a conversation.
He can have a conversation. He thinks, he's got a world view. That's not the same thing as intelligence.
No.
But I think that Justin Herbert is known as a brainy guy to his team. And he's grown into being a leader with them. It was hard going for him to do that. Simon brings that up a lot, but yeah, he and Drew Lock are very similar. And Drew Lock was the same way. It was play after play after play. Well, yeah, the play was successful, but where was your ball placement on that? Where was your timing on that one? Why did you miss this guy? Or why did you miss this opening over here? Why did it was just constantly there's something. And even if the play is successful, you saw the trait, it was there. But he's come into the NFL. He sat for a while. He got injured. They definitely slow walked him through this process. They didn't try and throw him out there right away. And he's coming out there. He's the talent will out. The talent is, and that's what's showing right now.
If you're reading some of the Bronco beat writers, they're writing things today like John Elway did it. He found the quarterback of the future.
Exactly. So that's a vote in favor of Herbert.
Yeah, and if you watch that game against the Texans, he eviscerated the Houston Texans. And trust me, it's hard to outshine Deshaun Watson. Well, Drew Lock did.
Okay. That's also a vote in favor of Jordan Love.
Yes, it is.
Really.
Absolutely. So, I think Drew Lock is more Jordan Love than Justin Herbert.
He could be. That could be fair.
Because they both have the big arm and they both are capable of doing the dumbest things imaginable.
Right. No, that's true. That's fair.
Because that's what I always saw from Drew Lock. What I always saw from Drew Lock was 3 throws that would make me say, this guy's a first rounder. And then the 4th throw, I would say, okay, no.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want this guy nowhere near my team. But
there's a little bit of a gunslingerness that was part of Drew Lock's game. That is the one thing that I wouldn't compare to Herbert, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And it is more like you said, it is more like a Jordan Love, and so yeah, it's definitely a vote in favor. I think it's a vote in favor of both Love and Herbert. To see the guy with the big talent come out after having been coached up for a little bit, come out and be hot in the NFL. That's a vote in favor of talent. But on the flip side of the coin, we've got the Gardner Minshews of the world or of the NFL, and some other guys that don't have great arm talent that are also having a moment.
Yes.
So what do you take from that? What do you take?
Yeah, and if you watched Jacksonville, the worst mistake they ever made was after they lost those 2 games, benching Minshew for Nick Foles.
Right.
They've gone absolutely backwards.
Yeah, they don't.
They've gotten killed those 2 games.
Daniel Jones has had a few moments this year too, and he doesn't have the big arm as we talked about. And so what do you take from that? I don't know. But there's votes in favor of all these guys. What I take from it is that, first off, Jake Fromm is going back to school. Yes. Jordan Love, rumors a swirl about Jordan Love just graduate transfer. He's a graduate. He can transfer without taking a year off. And now he's got so much talent, he might have his pick. I mean, Oklahoma might have they might be okay with that Rattler guy, but who knows? At the same time, there's talk about him possibly going to Texas Tech. I mean, could you imagine him going to LSU and taking over for Joe Burrow?
Yes.
That's
what makes the most sense to me.
He's got his pick, right? So he could go back to school and look to have a good year and then come out in 2021. The demand, if the supply is there, the demand is going to be there. So I wouldn't worry about Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields too much if you're Jordan Love, because first off, you have the talent to compete with those guys. And second, if there are 5 first-round quality quarterbacks, in a draft, they will all go in the first round. The teams with the need will show up all of a sudden. And especially
Absolutely.
There's the replacement cycle in this NFL it's got to begin, because we got Big Ben, you got Tom Brady, you got Phil Rivers, you got Drew Brees. These guys are ancient. Aaron Rodgers is not getting any younger. Don't
look in your rearview mirror, Dolphin fans, but the Detroit Lions are hard charging for your pick.
Yeah, I mean I think that we'll see what happens with the Detroit Lions, but yeah, the demand springs up if the quarterback. So all these quarterbacks people say I would come out in 2020 because you don't want to be in the 2021 draft with Trevor Lawrence and all them. It's like, listen, if you're one of those guys, you're going to go in the first round. The demand is going to happen all of a sudden because all these guys are going to get retired forcibly, and so that's what you'll see in 2021. But I think Jake Fromm's going back, and I think Jordan Love, I would say 50-50 to maybe even more of a chance that he goes back and transfers. And then, of course, Tua Tagovailoa, that's really up in the air because he could stay in school and either not play and just kind of be a player coach, or maybe he does play and just plays enough to show that he's back from the hip injury. And then all of a sudden he's got a lot more money in his pocket. So watch out. All of our best laid plans, the Miami Dolphins, their best laid plans at quarterback just evaporate. And because Joe Burrow is clearly not an option either.
No.
So what do you do?
Like a lock.
What do you do? You put the poll out there today. You put the poll out there and you're like Matthew Stafford or Derek Carr. Or
Matthew Stafford's a runaway winner in that poll.
Well, yeah, but I think you put Tannehill in there, even though we know that's not happening. Tom Brady, Brady. I mean, is that really going to happen? Is Tom Brady going to put on a different uniform and it
it's
be
the appeal.
Dolphins uniform?
It's the appeal. Tom Brady knows this staff. We're going to spend a lot of money. I can see the scenario where Tom Brady feels completely disrespected, eyeballs the Dolphins and says, "Wait a minute, I have to beat the Bills and the Jets." And then I got to beat the Patriots 1 out of 2 times to have a realistic shot at a real fuck you. You know what I mean? To Bill Belichick. Sign me up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
could see that. I could see that happening.
I don't think he goes somewhere. I don't think he goes somewhere to be a cellar dweller. And the Dolphins are one of the worst teams in the league. And no matter how much money they have, you don't fix everything in one off season just because you got some money in picks. And especially this staff with this philosophy, they don't do that. Okay, they don't go out there and just buy a bunch of high priced stuff. That's not them. That's the thing that people keep missing when they're like, oh, we got a huge budget, we got a bunch of money and stuff like that. No, that's not them. It's just not their makeup. So I'd be very surprised if they do that. Is Tom Brady really going to come here to do that? I do not think so. I think there's not much of a chance. If anything, maybe they'll try and revisit the Teddy Bridgewater thing and see, if they can make that happen. But you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. I brought up Marcus Mariota because it's like, well, that may be what you're faced with.
I just don't want the guy that Ryan Tannehill benched. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes magic happens, and just you can't explain it. But
But yeah, the winner of that trade, the winner of that poll is a runaway. It's Matt
yeah,
Stafford with
it's
46%.
Stafford. But you have to ask this. I asked this question. Listen,
And that poll already has 1,300 votes in 3 hours. So
Matt Patricia, and Brian Flores, very similar, cut from the same cloth,
yes.
right? So Matt Patricia is going to decide that Matthew Stafford is not his guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian Flores is going to decide that Matthew Stafford is his guy. Why is that? Why is Matt Patricia going to dump Stafford in favor of whichever quarterbacks are left to
The
draft?
argument for it is his salary, which is not crazy.
His salary is only $21 million. So that's a
Right.
vote in favor of.
Right.
I mean, this is two-sided. Detroit's looking at that and they're like, "Yeah, we'll keep that."
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The votes in favor are his salary, which are reasonable, and the way he was playing this year when he got hurt. He was having an MVP type season when he got hurt. So
why would Patricia get rid of him?
Exactly. That's what I struggle with that.
Well, if he does decide to get rid of him, more like I could see him decide to get rid of him. But if he does decide to get rid of him, why? On the flip side, does Brian Flores go ahead and say, "Yeah, I want him," even though Matt Patricia doesn't? You know what? You know what I mean? Because Matt Patricia's going to say, "I'm going to get rid of him. I'm going to get rid of him, and I'm going to go for I don't know who's going to be left at quarterback in this draft at this point, Jacob Eason or something like that." So he's going to say, "That's my guy." And
Herbert, they're going to be picking right behind us.
Or Herbert. Okay, so let's say it's Herbert. So Matt Patricia says, Matthew Stafford's not my guy, Justin Herbert is. And Brian Flores, who has enough draft position to get Justin Herbert if he wants, says, no, I don't want Justin Herbert. I want Matthew Stafford. I don't get that. That's what I don't get. Mm-hmm. Why do they end up on opposite sides of that? Yeah. Because they don't have – I mean, they're very similar – I think they're very similar. They're both out of the same, team structure and the same philosophies and stuff like that. So I have a hard time seeing them on opposite sides of that trade.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But, it's near the off season, so we got to make polls. And this one's evidently pretty popular. It's going to get a ton of votes. I love that I threw Ryan Tannehill in there. Ryan Tannehill has 23% of the vote right now. Which is all kinds of ridiculous.
That's fun.
Can you imagine this fan base if Ryan Tannehill came in for a free agent visit?
Oh my God, it'd be ridiculous. And you know what's funny about that is like Ryan Tannehill would be if you think about kind of philosophically what personality, I guess, yes, Brian Flores wants in his quarterback. It's not going to be like a Jameis Winston. It's more like Ryan Tannehill. Mm-hmm. And so Ryan Tannehill would be a candidate if they weren't the ones that just traded him for a 4th round pick.
Yeah. Although I'm pretty sure that Ryan Tannehill, deep down, he would love to be back here because he loves living in South Florida. Mm-hmm. But I think his pride is not going to allow him. Besides, he's going to sit down with, the brass in Tennessee, and they're going to give him a big, fat contract, and he gets to play over there, And that's not too far from his home in Fort Lauderdale. He could live in Tennessee for a couple of months out of the year and then just, take a little car ride right back down to Fort Lauderdale and live in his big house.
I will say they treated him well on the outside. They found a good team for him. They worked with him. I mean, he was very grateful for the process. They did exactly what he wanted that way in terms of finding a team, and also they even ate that $7 million to make it happen. So they treated him well on as an outgoing player, and so it would be kind of funny and interesting if a year later, like Tennessee's trying to negotiate with him, and they're not doing a very good job with it, and Miami swoops in and is like, hey. What do you think? And he's like, think? Well, I like Miami. You always treated me well. Uh-huh. You treated me well on the outside. I didn't want to be part of this ridiculous rebuild and this tank season that you were because Miami was going to go through this tank season in 2019. So I don't think Tannehill really wanted to be part of that, just like many other players. So they'd be like, I understood, what you guys were doing, and I didn't really want to be there for that. But now you guys are in a different spot, and you guys always treated me well, and I like South Florida, so I'm coming back.
If just for the freak out of Dolphin Twitter,
oh yeah,
it's worth happening.
Great. The reactions would be wonderful.
Those reactions, they're gonna be insane.
I could live off those reactions for a year.
Absolutely. And well, who knows? He might be a Super Bowl champion come this.
Could happen to Laramie Tunsil too. Did he didn't get his contract yet?
No, he has not. And he's not moving off his mountain where he wants to be the highest paid left tackle. So
sure. And after the year that we're having at that left tackle position, it's like,
so welcome back, Laramie Tunsil.
It is. Absolutely. It is pretty important, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So Laramie Tunsil, absolutely welcome back whenever you want.
We'll get the gang back together. What if we got Laramie Tunsil and Ryan Tannehill back after trading them for
we
picks?
Get the band back together.
We get the band back together,
and let's go for it with a new coach
with the picks, with the 4th round pick and the 2 firsts, and was it 2 firsts and 2 seconds or 2 firsts and a second?
It was 2 firsts and a second.
2 firsts and a second. So we get the band back together plus 2 firsts, a second, and a 4th.
Yes.
And maybe the Denver Broncos cut Juwan James at that point because
and we pick him up too.
And
then we sign Kenyon Drake in free agency.
Oh man. Get the band, just totally get the band back together.
And let's go for it. Let's go win the Super Bowl with the old guys.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
All right. We've been talking for too long that we're approaching the subject of trying to re-sign everybody we've traded out of here.
Yeah, I know.
Although notice we didn't mention Minkah Fitzpatrick.
No. And that's fine. Like he's the one that burned the bridge.
Yes.
Like that one's gone. That's done. But
our listeners cannot complain.
Two micro points that I wanted to bring up though, before we finish. Just things to think about. One, we talked about Isaiah Simmons on Clemson before. Think about him like trading up from one of our late 1st round picks and using Jerome Baker to trade up and go and get Isaiah Simmons with one of those picks to replace Jerome Baker, so that you still have a guy with Jerome Baker's speed, because we've seen how important that speed can be. That Stephen Parker interception that you saw this weekend happened because Jerome Baker has such good speed that they could actually use him as they faked the A-gap blitz with him and then had him pull out into like a Tampa 2 middle of field coverage.
Yeah. Which
is just like ridiculous. Like you got to be speedy to do that.
You got to be Derek Brooks to do it.
Yeah, he did. But I mean, to fake the A-gap blitz and then do it. So I think that so that's one. You need that speed somewhere. And you also pointed out the play where in the 4th quarter on that last drive, we tried to rotate in the coverage. We still pulled out back into a 7-man coverage, but we tried to rotate the coverage over to have some corner blitzes come in as the 3rd and 4th rushers, and they caught us on it with a little screen, and it ended up being a costly play. Well, the guy that prevented that from being a touchdown was Jerome Baker because he had the speed to do it, right? So the speed is important. Isaiah Simmons has that speed, but he's also a lot more rational for this defense because he's bigger, he's taller, he's stronger. And I think that, maybe he could do the things up front in the linebacker unit that Jerome Baker is struggling with, because overall he didn't have a great game, but his speed was still a useful tool. So think about that. The other thing to think about is the last 3 games we've gained 22, 26, and 22 first downs in these games. That's above league average. League average is like 21. So we've been above average that way in the last 3 games. And the thing that I noticed that's coincided with it is the fact that the offense has really come to rely on 12 personnel during those 3 games, which did not happen before in the games before. So 2 tight end personnel, 12 personnel. I know over the first 2 of those 3 games, they were the 2nd most 12 oriented team in the league. Only the Philadelphia Eagles had used it more. And then I think in this game, I think they went ridiculous with it against the Jets. I think they used it even more than they had against the Browns and the Eagles. So So 12 personnel, like going forward, is becoming a thing, and it's working for them. So I think that's something to keep an eye on, whether that's some sort of revelation, and maybe it affects what they think going forward, because certainly we've seen the resurgence of Mike Gesicki, and we've seen, now we're seeing some blocking success and some running success out of 12 personnel. They're actually gaining like 4 yards a carry out of 12 personnel on the ground, which for this offensive line is a friggin', Herculean feat. So I just want to make those points because it's something to think about as we go forward.
Yeah, that is interesting. Although on your first point, I just would I can't see myself trading assets to upgrade that position. Even though, I love that player. But yeah, not that position. For a tackle, yes. For a quarterback, absolutely. For a corner.
That's one of the few that Bill Belichick paid, though, is Donta Hightower, because of his versatility.
That is
like
true.
There's very few on that defense that Bill Belichick would be like, yeah, we'll go ahead and pay that guy. There's Stephen Gilmore, of course, and Devin McCourty because of his versatility. And then something that the versatility that Donta Hightower has really makes that defense go up front. And I think that's that could be something that they could pay, they could value.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can't complain, listeners. You got an extended podcast this week. You got everything pretty much. You even got Tannehill talk. You even got us to start laying out a scenario where we put the entire band back together, minus Adam Gase, of course.
Oh yeah, most important part.
All right, that's it. There is no more. We will talk to you guys later this week.
Thanks for listening to 3 Yards Per Carry. You can subscribe via iTunes, on Podbean, or your usual podcast provider.